As we continue to examine the attacks on capitalism currently underway, my next guest writes that a key indicator is the growing black market and points to the avoidance of bank accounts as a sign of this. Richard Rahn is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute and chairman of the Institute for Global Economic Growth. His latest article is New Underground Economy. Richard, welcome to Freedom Watch.
Well, it's great to be with you, Judge.
Thank you. I remember studying the Great Depression, and I remember studying rationing during World War II, and I often thought to myself, let's see, the government rationed everything from coffee to sugar to milk to cream to shoes to typewriters, but there was always a black market for that. So I guess the stuff was there for people to buy anyway. Fast forward today. Is there a black market going on as we speak, engaged in by prudent people who want to avoid the oppressive and crushing regulations of the government?
Well, we've got a lot of evidence that the black market is growing rapidly, and that is there's been a huge increase in the amount of cash held by individuals outside of the institutions, outside of the banking, outside of the Fed, over the last 2 years. It's up over 13%. We also are seeing a rise in the unbanked and underbanked populations, along with a big drop in tax collections. The drop in tax collections is much greater than you would expect from just the recession.
All right, let's start with a couple of basics. Are there any banks in the United States of America that are not regulated by the Federal Reserve?
No.
Okay. So if a person is not going to put money in a bank account in order to escape whatever we fear the Federal Reserve will do or will permit the bank to do as a result of that money deposited, where do they keep it? Literally in a shoebox under the mattress? Or is there some kind of underground banking system going on that the public doesn't know about?
Well, there's no formal underground banking system that we know about. I mean, there may be things that people are doing. I think a lot of this is just people hiding cash various places. And there is a huge cash economy going on. We've seen this phenomenon in Europe for many years, in places like France and Italy, where they have very large underground sectors. This comes about because tax rates are much higher than people are willing to pay. The regulations are onerous and counterproductive and really hurt folks. So they get around it by not participating in the formal institutions which are regulated.
We're chatting with Richard Rahn, who's a senior fellow at the Cato Institute. What would be the advantage, if I had $10,000, what would be the advantage of my putting $10,000 in cash in a shoebox in the back of my bedroom closet, as opposed to putting the $10,000 in an account with J.P. Morgan Chase or Bank of America?
Well, let's assume you wanted to make payments to something like a home contractor, because he'll give you a lower price if you do not give him a check, if you give him cash, so he doesn't have to report it for tax reasons. And so a lot of people who do household services, even business services and others, they'll quote you two prices. One is the official price for the contract, and the other is if you just give them cash. They also are afraid of banks being subject to court judgments, which may seize their money. They may be having a commercial dispute, a dispute with a spouse or someone else. And they fear that the courts will demand that the cash or the bank account is turned over to them. And if you don't have a bank account, there's nothing to claim.
All right. And of course, we know what the government can do. I mean, if you owe your neighbor $10, your neighbor has to sue you, and if your neighbor prevails, docket the judgment that is recorded in the county courthouse. But if you file a tax return revealing that you owe the IRS or the state of New York or the state of California $10,000, the government deems that tax return as an admission of the debt. So it doesn't have to sue you. It doesn't have to get a judgment. It can just go into your bank account and take the money. Is that a reason why people are engaged in the underground economy? And what are the long-term consequences of this cash, this paperless, this digital-less, if you will, underground economy?
Well, you've asked several questions there. One is that just having a huge increase in cash holdings, what this means is a lot of these folks who hold just cash are subject to having it stolen. It can be lost. It can, their house burns down, they lose the cash, whatever else. So it's not usually a good thing to do to have a lot of cash in your home. Now, there's a lot of folks who are experimenting with various types of digital transmissions of money or money-type claims, and because people want to get around these onerous government regulations.
Wow. Long-term consequences of this. I mean, do you see more and more of it happening, or do you see it reaching some sort of a breaking point whereby people go back to using banks? I mean, there's nothing illegal about keeping money in a shoebox. It's risky, and there's no return on the money, and there may be a benefit to it. But do you see this getting to be a greater series of events or lesser?
Well, as the government increases regulations and taxes, and also when they make more laws and regulations against money laundering, money transfers, where you have to do more reporting, what this does is makes people feel fearful and move into the underground economy.
Richard Rahn from the Cato Institute, thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
It's a great pleasure. Always good to be with you.
You can catch today's show on foxnews.com/freedomwatch and on Sirius 145 XM 168 or online at foxnewstalk.com at 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. From New York, defending freedom. Until the next time, stay free, America.